Turn camera off.
John's face. Hello? That doesn't sound bad. I think it's your ears.
I think it got better. No, I think it got better.
Really? You think it got better?
Yeah.
Good job. And that was a demo of Windows 11.
Yeah.
All right.
That's going to blow the world. Seriously.
Yeah. Fantastic. Love it. Very, very exciting time. So.
It really wasn't.
No, it really wasn't. No, we were playing Minecraft. Yeah. So okay. So we are here at the MVP Summit, and we're Blurry.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm Scott, and that's Damo. And we've got some people here. Here, say hi, John Galloway in the front. Where you at, John? You can't see John because he's bald.
Get some reflection on
and reflection on his head. Yeah. Yeah. So okay, so this is the ASP.NET Community Stand-Up, right? This is what we do every Tuesday.
Yep.
Except when we don't do it.
Yes.
And,
when you get blackbarred from,
Yeah, when I get blocked out of Google for being microstopped. So we alternate between 10:30 in the morning Pacific and 4:30, depending, or 3:30-ish, to try to make sure we hit all the time zones, or at least the ones that matter.
That's it. That's true.
Cool. So, Damien, what's the status right now of the build, and how are things going?
We are very close to finishing beta. So we've been talking about that the last couple of stand-ups.
That's beta.
Beta, B-E-T-A. I don't know how to say it.
Beta.
I say it better than you.
Beta 1.
Beta 1.
Okay.
So you'll see that dropping very soon.
Okay.
We've been talking about that the last few weeks. We've been tracking down. I think we should be pretty much done in the sort of runtime side of things. Tooling might still be fixing some stuff. I'm not really sure. But that's very close. And so a lot of the team has now moved on to working on the next release, Beta 2. Those milestones are open on GitHub. You can go and see the issues that we're working on right now. And I think even the RC milestone, some of the repos is open as well.
How do they see that? Like, how do they see
So if you go into the issues,
okay.
To any of the public repos, go into issues, and then you'll see that you can filter by milestone in the GitHub UI.
Oh, okay.
Or you can click on the milestones tab and just see what milestones are defined. And so we tend to define them like 1 or 2 ahead.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any dates on them for obvious reasons, but you can see what we're working on in what particular milestone.
But if I can see what milestones are ahead, can I see the end at some point? Like if I get to beta 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, presumably you'll be a couple ahead, and then I'll see a milestone that's called done. And
so we have a good
I'll know it's coming.
So that's a great point. So at the moment, we haven't even released beta 1, but the beta 2 and the RC milestones are there in GitHub.
So there's no beta 3.
There's no beta 3 there at the moment.
So already
we're probably not planning a beta 3.
Already I know too much.
Unless we really screw up somehow, and then we'll have to do a beta 3. So yeah, that's all out there in the open. You can have a look at it. We're triaging issues and features into those milestones right now. And if you think you want to weigh in and say, oh, I think you should do this early because of this, then be our guest. That's why it's all open. So
when you're out there in the open, are you or the devs feeling more uncomfortable that like sometimes when I do stuff in GitHub, like always, it's like there's the commit for the feature, and then there's like, oh, the test didn't pass, and oh, typo, and oh,
there is a bit of that.
I swore in my comment. Or, so like there's like a 4-to-1 ratio of like commits that matter versus
signal
crap.
noise. Yeah. I mean, so I can't speak for everybody. I haven't seen a huge amount. I know in the music store repository, which is where I'm doing most of my work because I'm sort of more doing the app dev sort of side of things. There's a fair bit of that, but we'll tend to squash commits when we rebase. And so I work in a branch, or I like a spa-whip branch where I just do a bunch of
work in progress.
And then so a lot of my commits are whip, bit more whip, some fixes, whip. And then before I merge back, I'll rebase interactive and just squash everything down and summarize what I did. But in the main, I'm sure there are cases where people have pushed stuff, they broke some stuff, and then they've had to do a quick fix.
Culturally, has it changed how the devs do stuff, that they're putting stuff into the public? Because you're kind of doing a tiny release.
That's a dev. Let's ask a dev.
I can't see.
Taylor, has it changed what you do at all?
For when it's public? So you're not swearing
less emoji or more emoji or
less emoji? Were there a lot of emoji in commits before?
We use emoji quite a bit in pull requests, like to say when we're like signing off on a pull request, there's the ship it emoji, which we use quite a bit. Some people do a ship and an Italian flag to say ship it. So there's all, and then there's nice, subtle.
I just want to get my sponsorship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, no, I don't know. It hasn't Signaler, because I've been working on Signaler for a few years now. It's been public the whole time, so I don't really think about it.
I guess I'm just saying that like a commercial company doing open source, I
Yeah.
would feel like as a dev, and I'm curious what Taylor and some of the other devs think, is like, are you going to commit something and then one of us or one of the MVPs or someone who's watching is going to go in and go, "You're an idiot. You used the hash table when you should have used the what's it."
Well, that happens internally anyway, so I mean,
so it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter.
Sees.
I mean, so everything gets code reviewed pretty well, and so generally that will be picked up either before it gets sent as a PR or while it's a PR, and it'll be fixed before it's pushed into dev. Like
so the embarrassing comments occur within the issue.
Yeah, generally speaking, yeah. And so I mean, we hope not to have too much of that stuff happen. Yeah.
So now that we're doing things kind of in the open, what kind of stuff are MVP secret NDA conversations happening, right? Mostly this is a training session more than it is talking about secrets.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of this is, some of it is boring stuff like message and like, so we're an engineering group. We're an engineering product team. We don't do marketing. And so there's a whole different group that figures out how we're going to sort of, quote unquote, sell this stuff and what wave it's a part of and all that type of thing. And so that's sort of a separate discussion. So this is more of the, what features are we going to do? How does this relate to what customers do today? How do you talk about transitions? How do you talk about when they use what, et cetera, et cetera?
So this is almost kind of like, using an Americanism, this is kind of like Congress. In
right.
the sense of like, these are like not elected, but they are representatives, theoretically representing your interests, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that's different about what we're doing now versus doing it a couple of years ago is before, not everyone in the public had a voice.
Right.
And currently, if you put an issue in GitHub, we're not going to listen to an MVP's issue or an insider's issue more than we will yours. A good issue is a good issue.
And just to reinforce that point, we now actively steer people who are MVPs and insiders and whatever other, we have other programs as well, TAP and other things. We tend to try and steer conversations that are about public bits to the public forum. So if we get an email from an MVP or even anyone from the community and says, "Oh, I wanted to know about this, or I had this feedback," I say, "Well, how about you log a GitHub issue and we do this discussion in public, because that just makes it better for everybody."
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm finding that the MVP and insider stuff is more about FaceTime and more about like, is this open source project that I'm working on? Like we've got James from Jason.net. Like, how is the next version of ASP.NET going to affect my open source project type questions happening?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the people in this room tend to be ones who have actively engaged anyway, because that's the reason they're here. They're actively engaged in the community. They actively engage with the product team. So they're kind of a good conduit between those two areas. So.
Did Rick, I see you had a question. Where's the mic? Hang on, we're recording, so we have to do mics the right way.
Hello.
John is lumbering down the. That was very graceful.
So what are the right avenues for this kind of feedback? Because I mean, some things don't seem to be really that well suited for GitHub. I mean, if you have a discussion of something, GitHub is really not the right place. If you want to report a bug or a feature request, it makes perfect sense. But sometimes if it's just, I have a question about this or that, what's the right place to go? I mean, there's forums, there's, where do we go for this where we get the best response?
Great question. And we kind of
GitHub issues are not necessarily a place to just chew the
depends
fat.
Depends who you talk to.
Really?
It depends who you talk to.
Well, it's kind of like some people run their issues really tight.
Yep.
Like they run it like Stack Overflow. That's off topic. Closed.
So what we've kind of decided, I think, and anyone from the team can jump in and correct me here, is we have a repo called Home, ASP.NET/Home. And the issues in there isn't really anything in /home. Like Home is kind of the landing page for the entire org. And so we've kind of said, if you want to do discussions and just talk about stuff but interact with the team and have it tracked in such a way, then you can log an issue in Home and start a discussion there. We tend to discourage just discussions in the other repos because we actively use those repos to triage issues. Like that's where we do our work. Traditionally we use the forums, and Stack Exchange is really good for things that have discrete answers, like a question with an answer. And then we have the ASP.NET forums for just general discussion. But we're willing to evolve that.
So you're saying if there's a fundamental issue with MVC
or a suggestion,
argue about it in MVC.
Or a feature that you want to see happen.
But if the general direction of the architecture at the larger sense, KVM and how the runtime is going to work, argue about that.
Or you have like an overarching issue you want to bring up, like how are docs going to work in this world, or how is this going to work, or that going to work.
Can we move issues between?
Yes, we can move issues. Yeah, so we can either manually or not. So we can certainly do that. So
is that cool?
Yeah, it sounds cool, but still it sounds a little confusing because even as you're talking about it, you got like 3 or 4 places, right?
Yeah. So there will not be one place.
Well,
Yeah,
But so
it
you
would
got-
be really nice if there was at least one place for discussion that was kind of sort of official. You know
Home.
what I mean?
home. Start at home. ASP.NET/home.
So yeah, so GitHub/ASP.NET/home is that, and then there's just subfolders within that. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
Any other questions while we're taking questions?
Yeah, I guess.
Otherwise, we
Oh,
can keep
actually, John,
talking.
is there anyone on Twitter
Or in the Hangout,
or in the Hangout? Yeah, actually, how do I do that?
turn on the, what is it,
I'm
QA?
gonna click some button.
Oh, we kicked John out of the Hangout.
This feature is disabled.
Awesome.
All right.
All right. Not there today.
Cool. Yeah, that worked out well. And there's me. That's not helpful either. All right. Well, John, tell me what the questions in Twitter are, or Jabber, or Facebook, or Cut.
Is that a thing still?
Brazilians? Orcut still a thing? No? Friend feed?
Friend feed, ICQ.
ICQ?
Showing my age.
ICQ, man. Oh, ICQ. FidoNet? Anyone?
No questions yet. People were laughing about the setup. They
Oh,
enjoyed the
okay,
setup.
yeah.
They're like, they don't like our setup?
No, I mean the
The prolonged.
yeah.
You mean
I see.
this part?
Yes.
Totally professional. This is what it looks like every week. We don't usually have the fancy audio mixing equipment, but my Surface generally looks like that every week when we do it. Oh dear.
Okay, make John run.
You know what subliminal means, right?
Question.
It's funny because somebody texted me, or not texted me, like tweeted me a while back, and they're like, "You really seem to like Coke a lot. You should probably stop drinking soda." Okay.
It's probably true.
Yeah.
On both counts.
Okay, we got a question on Jabber. It says, can you clarify what the story with Core CLR and Linux is?
There's really not much to clarify right now. Core CLR runs on Windows.
All right.
Yeah. On Linux, you use Mono.
Okay.
Yep.
So we'll see.
Which is a sort of full framework clone sort of thing. So.
Okay, we had one other question someone asked me during a break. They said that they were really looking forward to a session later this week, which maybe we can summarize, which is why? Like, I mean, in a nutshell.
Why?
Well, yeah,
Is
why?
the title of the session?
There is a session later this
Why?
week. It's like, what?
With their life, or
No, I mean, big picture, like you're explaining
Yep.
to a client and they're saying, why should
Oh,
I
okay.
update?
Yeah.
Yeah.
modularity, composability, lean. You know, it's just like when you install .NET now, you get WinForms.
Yep.
You get XML, and you get System.web, and you get all this stuff. And Node and Ruby and frameworks like it have proven that a composable framework is a more successful framework, and we want to be able to do that. We don't want to have to wait 18 months to ship a new version of the .NET framework. And we've been doing this for years now, right?
Yep.
I mean, you can pick up pieces of the framework as NuGet packages, whether it be the immutable stuff or collections or whatever. So I would say, wouldn't you say composability is the number one
That's
thing?
one of the things. A lot of it was freeing our ties from things that we were tied to.
Yeah.
So Windows was something that we were tied to pretty hard because .NET Framework ships in Windows. It ships as updates to Windows. So if we want to do a new feature that's in System Web, we have to wait for a Windows update cycle to come around. So part of this effort was, well, and not only that, when we investigated doing System Web out of band, right? We actually had an active prototype. We showed it at this conference a few years ago. And while it was technically plausible, it wasn't particularly an efficient way of doing it. And there would have been an awful lot of work to make it work really well. And then even if we'd done all that, we would have been still stuck with System Web, which is a 13-year-old code base. It has API compatibility with a code base that's 5 years before that. A lot of the APIs in System Web are there because they were there in ASP.NET, ASP Classic. And that, that's a big ball and chain to carry around when we're trying to build,
20 years.
evolve to emerging web development standards. Ajax happened in that time, SPAs have happened in that time, REST has happened in that
Well,
time,
arguably-
real time has happened in that time.
The internet happened in that
The
time.
internet happened in that time, right? And so it really, it was a foundation. It was a platform that didn't allow us to evolve as quick as we wanted to. That's the biggest. I mean, that's the big reason.
Okay. We got a question from eCode10 in Brazil, and he said, why not Codeplex?
Why not Coplex? Because everyone is on GitHub. Like, I mean, there's really no hidden agenda behind that. It is.
There's a
Customers
decision
are on
made by,
GitHub.
decision made by the bosses, and then that's where we wanted to be seen. We want to move into new markets and have different people using this stuff.
And frankly, doing open source on GitHub is a pleasure.
Yeah.
and it continues to get better. I mean, it has its issues, but they're pretty responsive, and they've really nailed that concept of coding in the open.
Social coding.
Social coding, as they say, right? They've really nailed it, and why fight it?
Well, actually, why fight it is an interesting general topic about just why this stuff's been done.
And don't get me wrong, there are times when I think it is good to fight something.
Absolutely. But like more than just GitHub, we've got, Bower and NPM, and Grunt and Gulp, and composability, and the CLR versus the core CLR. Bootstrap and
jQuery before it.
Yeah, and Knockout and on and on and on, and Angular.
Yep.
So the idea is that it would be egotistical of Microsoft to try to invent everything in the Redmond reality distortion field and then bring it to the people when the people are doing amazing work. So we are attempting to join the larger community and do the work like everybody else does the work.
And we've seen that right across Microsoft now. I mean, IE made some great announcements in the last 6 months. I'm seeing Google, Paul Irish, Google developer evangelist, is constantly tweeting about stuff that IE is doing, which I think is fantastic. It's just really showing now that those browser teams are talking constantly and being a lot more transparent about the web development features that we all want to use. So,
John, you got a question back there?
Yeah. So we're the crazy guys. We're all the guys running the alpha, the beta, directly on the metal, no VM. But what about the dark matter developers? How are you planning to approach them with this new way of doing ASP.NET and actually selling them the idea? We're already sold over here.
So like enterprise people and people who aren't on Twitter and aren't out there. So some of us have been doing this for a long time, and we remember these fundamental shifts. I was teaching at Intel in like 94, 95, 96, sitting down with MFC developers, teaching them how to do ASP, active server pages. And it took me 40 hours to explain that there were 5 intrinsic objects. And like we was like, well, wait a second. So response and request is which is the request and response? I mean, I remember that. I was a professional trainer doing that. And that was a shift. People were losing their damn minds. When the start button showed up, people freaked out. I remember that very distinctly. Then web pages happened, and view state and button click, and that was a fundamental shift.
And Interdev before, but
I trained, and I did classes, and I wrote books, and we wrote books, and then we went to MVC, and people freaked out. I don't personally, and this is my opinion, see this as being any different than the shift from nothing to active server pages, from active server pages to web forms, from web forms to MVC, from MVC to this. Plus, it's in our case, it's still MVC. You still got web API. It's not like we've thrown everything away and started from scratch. The framework application concepts are there, but we just happen to be changing the engine on the car.
We call that concept compatibility.
Concept compatibility.
Yeah.
Is that what that's called?
Yeah. So we try, and when we talk about compat between ASP.NET now and ASP.NET moving forward, we talk about code compatibility and app compatibility and concept compatibility. And it's like, if you look at the concept count in something like an MVC application and the intrinsics around it, how many of those concepts just transpose over? Okay, pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
And then if you bundle in web API, a bunch of those concepts come over as well. And then we look at the code itself, like APIs, how many of them come over? Not all of them, but a lot of them. So you recompile will work. And then so on and so forth. But then we're doing some other concrete things. So, we did the one ASP.NET dialogue in a couple versions of Visual Studio ago. Pardon?
It remains, right?
It remains, and we're redesigning it to be a lot more flexible and to sort of grow as the framework now grows and we have these new options. But one thing that you'll probably see is we still not decided about what will be the default. So if you, in the next version of Visual Studio, once it RTMs, you go File, New, ASP.NET Web Application, what's the default template that's chosen there?
The whole new world?
Is it the whole new world, or is it web forms or MVC5?
That's a good question for people who are watching the show here.
So right now, it's still web forms is the default. So if you want to, you have to physically click on ASP.NET be next.
That concept count idea is popular with some. I find it comforting. Other people find it to be like, well, you should have binary compatibility. You should have source compatibility. Like when we go from Silverlight to Silverlight on the phone to not Silverlight on the phone and WPF and all that. From my perspective, well, I understand XAML and I understand data binding, so I feel comfortable about everything. But other people are like, well, I dropped my XAML from this into that, and the world exploded. Therefore, rage.
Yep.
But listen, the concept's there. It's C# and it's XAML. Why are we freaking out?
Like, I think as a developer, one of the things you have to ask yourself is what is it that what part of my knowledge is actually portable? And like, what am I actually being paid for? Am I being paid for the fact that I wrote this app and this app will live forever?
Right.
Am I being paid for the fact that I can write C# and XAML or HTML and CSS? And I would argue that you want to invest your time and your skills in the things that are kind of timeless, right? And in the world of .NET, that's going to be the language, it's going to be the way the compilers work, and it's going to be the ecosystem. And the fact that the project system changes from release to release shouldn't really bug you that much, like, because those things are fairly transient.
John, another question?
Yeah, we got a few more. So Samir asks, will Kestrel be available as an option to self-host ASP.NET vNext RTM?
Yes.
Yeah, it's available now, and it will remain available. Kestrel, of course, is like Cassini. It's like the little lightweight.
Well, okay,
because
I personally wouldn't use that.
Really?
No, Cassini was never intended for production use. It was always intended as local development. Kestrel is designed to be a cross-platform .NET managed web server.
Sure, but you said production use.
Yes.
You would put Kestrel in production and put like Nginx in front of it?
No reason you shouldn't be able to. Like, we're treating it that way because there's a lot of things you just don't worry about if it's for development.
I will pick another moon of Saturn to refer to it as.
Okay.
All right.
Another question on Kestrel is it single-threaded?
Kestrel uses libuv under the covers, and so it's
pronounced libuv.
I call it libuv, but Fowler calls it libuv, so I just
all Fowler wants us to say nupcake too.
I want to say nupcake. Let's go with libuv. It uses libuv, which is the evented I/O abstraction over Linux and Windows that Node sits on top of, and then Kestrel does its own just with that. Is Lou in the room still? Lou wrote Kestrel. He can answer.
No.
Is it
somebody text?
Is Kestrel multi-threaded?
The networking pump for libuv is a single thread, but the application runs in a node.
Okay, so basically what he's saying is the requests are dispatched from libuv on a single thread, like that event loop within libuv is single threaded. But once it gets into Kestrel, work is dispatched within the Kestrel world just via the standard thread pool.
Great. We got a question from Rick, and he said, can I eventually get some extra performance when I run an core CLR app versus normal IIS host in Azure websites?
I don't know yet. That's the intent.
Bigger, faster, stronger is the intent.
I mean, like, eventually, sure. I can't commit to when. But yes, that's
he's basically saying, will it be bigger, faster, stronger?
Will it be that? One of the reasons we want to use the core CLR is so that we can have a very targeted, all the way down to kind of the very base level, the runtime itself, for these type of scenarios, rather than having a more general purpose one. Like even today's full CLR that you use on Windows has all these switches and knobs, like different modes of GC and different modes of this.
Trying to say, well, I'm a desktop CLR right now.
But it's really just one thing. Whereas we're kind of hoping that we can end up with a server optimized.
So this is a focus split rather than just tuning a bunch of stuff in machine.config. This is a formal declaration of the desktop CLR is a different one and a more targeted than the
And to be fair, that's already kind of happened. So we already have a different CLR that runs on Windows Phone and runs on Xbox and runs on Windows Store. Like they're tuned for what they do. So they share a lot of stuff, obviously, as well.
Maybe two more questions, and then
we better
be out of time.
Questions?
Anyone online?
We got all the online.
We got all that. Okay, cool. So that has been the ASP.NET Community Stand-Up.
For another week.
For another week. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so see you guys later. And feel free to tweet us with questions and stuff, and we'll try to answer. And also in the YouTube comment. YouTube people always do that.
So they go down like this?
And in the YouTube. And be sure to subscribe.
Or in your Google Hangouts?
I have no idea where the subscribe button is, but right here.